Welcome, curious minds. Today we're going to tell you a series of stories. Stories that delve into the unsettling world of the unexplained. And we're focusing on something really everyday. The voicemail.
Right.
These aren't just strange messages, though. They come with some truly chilling backstories that honestly leave more questions than answers.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How something so mundane, so common, like a voicemail, can suddenly become this doorway to the really unsettling.
Exactly. We've received accounts of these mysterious incidents, these experiences people have had, and we're here to unpack them for you, piece by unsettling piece. These are real accounts, genuinely perplexing.
And the psychological impact, the lingering questions these things leave behind, it's significant.
Absolutely. So let's start with John. He's 28, lives out in West Texas. Back in August 2021, not long after moving into a new place, he gets a call.
Okay.
Just showed up as no caller ID, which, for most of us, that's an immediate red flag.
Right, you usually just ignore those.
He did. Let it go straight to voicemail. Yeah. But the message he got, it was short, direct, and incredibly unnerving.
What did it say?
It was something like, hey, I'm outside your house. I found your info online and I could really use a job. Could you open the door?
Wow. That direct. Outside your house.
Yeah. Chilling stuff. John's first thought, prank, maybe a wrong number. But that specific bit, found your info online.
Yeah.
It stuck with
That
him.
made it sound more targeted.
Exactly. So his curiosity, maybe a bit of unease creeping in, he Googles his own name. And this is where it gets really unsettling. Second result, an online corporate database. Yeah. There it was. John's full name, his phone number, and his new home address, all just publicly listed.
Oh.
Well, John's self-employed. He'd set up an S corporation using his actual name for tax reasons. He didn't realize that this public registration meant his personal details were now out there on all these corporate directory sites.
So that voicemail suddenly seemed terrifyingly real.
Absolutely legitimate, or at least the possibility was terrifyingly real. What happened next just escalated things dramatically. John goes quietly downstairs, and then he hears it. Banging on the front door, a muffled voice. He ignores it. The knocking stops.
Okay, maybe they gave up.
For a second, then his phone buzzes again. Another no caller ID call. He lets it go to voicemail again. This time, just silence. Pure silence.
Creepy.
But it wasn't over. The knocking at the front door stopped, yeah, but it immediately started up again at the back door.
Whoa, that's bold. Persistent.
Terrifyingly so. John, though, he kept his cool, amazingly. Grabbed his phone, started recording, flicked on the backyard lights, and saw a silhouette standing there.
Jeez, what did he do?
The person called again, third time. This time, John answered. He told the guy straight up, I have a gun, and I've called the police.
Good move. Assertive.
And the reaction. The guy on the other end just says, completely calmly apparently, that he was just looking for work, apologized, and hung up.
Just like that. After banging on both doors.
Just like that. And the knocking stopped completely. Didn't come back.
What's truly fascinating here, though, is how quickly a seemingly innocuous request, looking for work, escalates into a clear threat.
Right.
And John's quick thinking was absolutely critical. This whole thing just throws a spotlight on a huge vulnerability in our digital age, how easily personal information gets exposed, sometimes without us even realizing it.
Yeah.
Like for small business owners setting up S-Corp or LLCs, state filings often require a physical address. And that address becomes public record, scraped by these online databases.
So what's the takeaway?
Well, a key takeaway for anyone listening, especially if you run a small business, is maybe consider using a registered agent service or even just a P.O. box for your official business address, not your home address. And definitely, check what information about you is publicly available online sometimes.
That's really solid advice. John definitely learned that the hard way. Afterwards, he tried contacting those websites to get his info removed.
Did they?
Nope. They refused. Said it was public record. So he actually went through the whole legal process of changing his business name so it didn't include his actual name anymore.
Wow. A lot of effort.
Yeah, and it makes you think, doesn't it? It's highly unlikely anyone banging on both your doors late at night, calling anonymously, is really just looking for a job.
If John had opened that door, well, it probably would have ended very differently.
Chilling thought.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. From that kind of stark real-world threat, we move to a case that, it blurs the lines between technology and maybe something else entirely.
Okay.
This story involves a guy named Alex Azari and a really disturbing voicemail his girlfriend received. What was weird was Alex's name could just faintly be heard in the message.
So she called him right away.
Immediately. And Alex was just as confused. He thought maybe it was a prank, one of his friends messing around.
Did he ask them?
Yeah, he asked everyone. They all denied it, and apparently found the whole idea genuinely creepy themselves.
So not a prank then. Doesn't seem like it. And here's what makes it so puzzling. Alex hadn't made any outgoing calls to his girlfriend. And the caller specifically called her, mentioning his name.
So someone had both their numbers. How?
That's the mystery. Especially because they live in different states, and apparently very few people even had her number.
Weird. And the voicemail itself, what was on it?
It was described as very hard to understand at first. It sounded like maybe a second person in the background. Well, very muffled. But one thing was clear. Someone was crying into the phone. Definitely crying. Alex tried to decipher the rest. He thought it sounded like "I'm trapped in the dark." But he admitted, it was so muffled it could have been something else.
Trapped in the dark. That's specific and disturbing.
Very. Initially, Alex didn't know what to make of it. Prank, hacker, something else. But then, things started happening in his house. Strange things.
When?
Starting that same day after the voicemail and into the next day. First, an upstairs door just slammed shut, randomly. Everyone was downstairs having dinner. They checked the room. Nobody was there.
Okay, that's weird. Drafts. Old house.
Maybe. But then later, Alex and his brother are home alone. And they both hear distinct footsteps coming up the stairs.
Footsteps. Like definitely not an animal.
They thought about their dogs. They had two. But then they remembered they had a dog gate at the bottom of the stairs. The dogs couldn't have gotten up.
Right.
And the sound, they said it didn't sound like dog footsteps anyway. It was reportedly heavier, more spaced out, like a person walking.
So the voicemail, the door, the footsteps, all close together. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's not just the strange voicemail itself. It's these subsequent unexplained events that really amplify the unsettling nature of the whole thing.
Right.
The human mind is pattern seeking, Once you have an anomaly like that voicemail, you start looking for connections, even in things that might seem unrelated otherwise.
So you think it primes you to notice things?
It can, certainly. It's a powerful illustration of how our perception gets influenced by an initial, really unsettling event. We start linking phenomena that maybe we'd dismiss otherwise. It definitely challenges our usual understanding of cause and effect and highlights the psychological impact of something like that voicemail.
Makes sense. And Alex himself, given the timing, he believes these things might all be linked to that mysterious voicemail.
You can understand why he'd think that.
Okay, our third story. This involves a couple who actually documented their experiences quite extensively. And for them, it wasn't just one voicemail. They'd been getting strange ones for weeks.
Weeks. On what lines?
Both their cell phones and their landline.
Wow. Okay.
And there was one incident, particularly eerie. The man's phone doesn't even ring. Nothing. He just suddenly gets two notifications. Straight to voicemail messages.
Of no caller ID.
No phone number, no contact details attached at all, just appeared.
And the messages themselves.
Horrifying, apparently. The couple described them as sounding like someone was being tortured. Or maybe some kind of creature screaming into the phone.
That's incredibly disturbing. Torture. Screaming.
Yeah. And to make it even more baffling, they contacted their phone company about these, both before and after this specific incident with the silent voicemails.
And the company said?
They claimed they had no records whatsoever of these audio messages being received. None.
No record at all on their network.
That's what they were told. And on top of these untraceable, horrific voicemails, the couple also started experiencing strange things in their house around the same time. For about a week, they reported hearing odd sounds at night, like kitchen cabinets closing by themselves.
Cabinets closing, screaming voicemails with no source. What's really fascinating here is the complete lack of a traceable source. I mean, from a technical perspective, yes, call spoofing exists, you can hide numbers. But for a phone company to have absolutely no record of an audio message hitting their network, especially for a landline maybe, that's highly unusual. It almost borders on impossible for standard phone systems.
So it defies the tech explanation.
It certainly pushes the boundaries. This kind of defiance of conventional explanation, it forces people involved to consider more. Well, unconventional theories. When logic fails, where else do you turn? That lack of a source creates this profound cognitive dissonance.
And that's exactly where it led them. Faced with untraceable messages, torture sounds, strange happenings in the house, the couple concluded, they ultimately believed, that what they were dealing with was supernatural.
You can see how they'd arrive at that conclusion lacking any other framework.
Okay, next up we have Martha Ramirez's account. Martha was 30 back in February 2021. Woke up on a Saturday morning, standard notification on her iPhone. Voicemail from an unknown number.
Another unknown number seems to be a theme.
It really does. She listens to it. And what she hears just washes over her, first with confusion, then just horror.
What was it?
The voice in the voicemail was unmistakably her father's. And all it said was, okay.
Her father's voice saying, okay.
Yes, but here's the chilling part. Martha's dad had died of cancer back in 2019.
Oh my God.
When she got this voicemail, he had been dead for almost 2 years.
2 years later, just his voice saying, okay.
Exactly. She listened again and again, trying to rationalize it, Could be someone else. Did it just sound like him?
But she was sure.
She said she knew her dad's voice, knew the way he sounded, saying her name, even though her name wasn't in the specific message. She couldn't remember him ever leaving a voicemail that short, that random, especially not one that would just show up years after he was gone.
Did she try to find an explanation?
Oh, yeah. Called her service provider. Same story, couldn't trace anonymous calls. She even asked her family, is anyone playing a truly horrible joke?
Yeah.
She sent them the voicemail. They were all just as disturbed as she was. No explanations. Just unsettled.
This brings up such important questions, doesn't it? About grief, about memory, the human need for connection, especially when something inexplicable happens.
How so?
Well, when someone is grieving, the brain can sometimes interpret ambiguous things, a sound, a shadow, in ways that align with hopes or fears. It's a known psychological phenomenon.
Like wishful thinking, or hearing what you want to hear.
Sometimes, yes. But when the experience is reported as being so vivid, so specific, like recognizing a loved one's voice distinctly, it really challenges purely rational thought. It taps into that fundamental human experience of loss, the bonds we feel that seem to transcend even death. It's just profoundly unsettling on a very personal level.
It really is.
Yeah,
and Martha's reaction kind of underscores that. She openly said she was never religious, not a believer in the supernatural at all.
Right.
But she insists this wasn't a joke by someone she knew. It wasn't just a technical glitch. She genuinely actually believes this was her dad's voice contacting her.
Yeah.
And she said it terrifies her deeply.
Wow. To go from non-believer to believing that, it speaks volumes about the impact of the experience.
It really does. Okay, for our final story today, we're looking at something that came from a Reddit post about 3 years ago.
Reddit. Okay, so community input, maybe?
Potentially. The original poster shared an experience their significant other had. They'd just gotten a new phone, one with visual voicemail.
Right, where you can see the list of messages.
Exactly. While checking a message from family, they noticed several other missed voicemails listed, and one stood out. It was dated Friday, June 9th, 2017. At 4:38 p.m. from an unknown number.
2017, and they found it much later.
Yeah, because of the new phone, they didn't discover this old voicemail until almost a year after it was actually left.
Okay, so old message. What was on it?
What was shared online was just a small, apparently horrific clip. The original audio was supposedly 3 minutes long, but that full version seems to have vanished from the internet completely.
Vanished. What did the clip have?
Even in the short clip, you could clearly hear what sounds like a girl saying, "Please help me," and maybe even, "They have my baby."
Oh, that's incredibly disturbing. Please help me. They have my baby.
Yeah, just awful. The Reddit poster did some digging based on the phone number. The area code, 480, placed the number's owner somewhere around the Phoenix, Arizona Valley.
Did they find anything related to that date and time?
They said they spent all day researching news reports, incidents around Phoenix, for the afternoon of June 9th, 2017. Used up all their, quote, very limited abilities in researching. Found nothing. No family or friends recognized the number either.
So a dead end on the research front. Did they do anything else?
Yes. They actually contacted the Phoenix police, gave them the audio clip, the timestamp, the phone number. They also tried calling the number back themselves, using 67 to block their own number.
Did it connect?
Went straight to voicemail.
What's fascinating here, again, is that community aspect. The attempt to solve this mystery, even based on such fragmented, disturbing information.
Right.
It really highlights our inherent human need to understand, to find answers, find resolution, even for things that are deeply disturbing and seem completely unsolvable. This whole effort, the anonymous poster reaching out to Reddit for help, it underscores the power of human connection, of empathy, even when you're faced with something so unsettling and just unresolved. It turns into this sort of crowdsourced investigation of the unknown.
It really does. A stark reminder of that need for answers. And the reaction on the original Reddit thread was intense. Many people commented that the full 3-minute audio, back when it was available, was so horrific they couldn't even listen to it all.
That bad?
Apparently. Now, of course, some people still argued it might have been a hoax, an elaborate prank.
Always a possibility with online stuff.
True. But ultimately, the voicemail itself and whoever was behind it, whatever happened, it remains a complete mystery.
Another unsettling loose end.
Exactly. So when we take all these stories together, John's encounter, Alex's potential haunting, the couple's terrifying messages, Martha's voice from beyond, this desperate plea found years later, what does it all mean? We see these common threads, don't we? Unknown numbers, deeply unsettling messages, the sources often being untraceable, and the profound, often terrifying personal impact on the recipients. There's rarely a neat, logical explanation that satisfies everyone involved.
And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, these accounts really serve as this potent reminder, don't they, of how thin the veil can sometimes seem between our ordinary, everyday lives and the truly inexplicable.
Yeah.
They challenge us really to consider what else might exist just beyond our normal understanding, and how easily a simple piece of technology, something in our pocket, can become this conduit for profound mystery, something that can genuinely shift a person's entire perception of reality.
Makes you question the limits of what we think we know. These accounts really do challenge our perceptions, don't they? It makes you wonder, what would you do if your phone rang and you heard a message like one of these? How would you react if an everyday device suddenly brought you face to face with something truly unsettling? It definitely leaves you pondering the unknown.
It does indeed.
Well, thank you for joining us on this rather unsettling journey into the unexplained today. We hope you found these stories as captivating and maybe as thought-provoking as we have. And hey, if you enjoyed this exploration, maybe give it a like, share it with a friend who likes spooky stuff, and definitely consider subscribing to our channel, Horror Docs, for more stories like these.
Please do.
Until next time, keep exploring the depths of knowledge, and maybe double-check your voicemail.